Morning, everybody, and welcome to Talking Niagara. It's Wednesday, February the 19th, 2025. That was well done, February. Yeah. Okay. That was well done. Notice the spelling error, so I go fix it immediately, don't I? Know me. Okay, so so first things first. This cold weather isn't going anywhere.
Welcome to Talking Niagara. You forgot that part.
I forgot that part. Yeah. Okay, so welcome everybody. And this cold weather isn't going anywhere, so says the CBC. And
It
other
isn't.
things.
According to the pseudoscience of weather reporting, it says it says we're also going to be uh, along well at least the balance of the week. I don't know when we're going to get relief. I haven't looked far enough in.
If you look at where this winter has been so far, it's not that we've had an exceptional amount of snow. We had quite a big bit this past weekend, that's for sure. But we haven't had an exceptional amount of snow. I've had days where we've had more snow than we've had in total this winter. But what we've got is just a slow build up, and it doesn't go away. Normally we get snow and you battle with it for a day or two, and then it gets into positive temperatures and the snow goes away. Then you get snow, battle with it for a day or two, and then the snow goes away. This year hasn't got warm enough for the snow to melt. So we've got snow that's compacted and snow that's compacted and snow that's compacted. Now we're getting ice on our driveways, so we're higher, much different.
Yeah, our concentration of winter is like probably from mid-January through to February and that. So we did get snow in and around Christmas time, so that was something. But
and it's been snowing since the beginning of January.
Well, kind of, but it's winter.
Yeah, I know. I'm not complaining. I'm just saying, unlike the last 2 or 3 years have been hardly anything, but unlike other winters where we get dumped upon and then it defreezes, and then we get dumped upon and it defreezes. This year it hasn't defrosted.
Defreezing?
Defrosted.
Defrosted. Well, that's a new one on me.
No.
Anyway, so it melts. You're saying?
Yeah, melting. Yeah. Normally we get a snowfall, melt, snowfall, melt, snowfall, melt.
Yeah. Well, because if you go back far enough, you didn't get that. Basically, you had a January thaw. Basically, your winter started in December. The early part of January, you got a bunch of snow, and then in January you had the January thaw. You don't even hear these terms anymore because weather's changed so much.
Yeah.
And then winter continued after the January thaw, and it was pretty much cold and snowy right up until the second week of March. And then every once in a while you'll get a nice weather day, and around about April or so you get frustrated because you get snow one day and sun the next day.
Yeah.
But around here, you really couldn't count for the end of winter until May 1st. Everybody thinks March is the end. Every year, the same thing. Oh, we're almost at March. Wait till we get to March. Everything's going to be different. No. March is an on and off month. You might get a nice day. You might get a day like this.
Exactly my experience with March. You get on and off days, But I don't know. It's not going anywhere according to this. Dropped 31 centimeters on Hamilton this weekend.
Hamilton could use it. Yeah, it's a big disruptor. It's just the weather we live with, but because of what it is like right now, you don't want to go out for walks. If you slip and fall, you're gonna go into a into a crowded hospital trying to knit other people's bones.
Yeah.
Just read another article here that I think like 40% of our population's between 54 and 64 or something like that. That they're all prone for broken bones too. So that's that's
Yeah.
caution. So it just
I'm terrified of going down, to be quite honest.
falling.
Of falling, yeah, right now. I fell the elbow a couple of winters ago. It still hurts my knee now. I went straight down on my knee.
Well, I was at a house, looking at a house with with one of my sons last night, and walked down the stairs of the house, and he just slipped right out and fell down the short stairs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right after he had stopped his partner from falling, his girlfriend from falling. He was able to grab her, wrenched his arm, and then slipped and fell on the stairs.
Ouch! 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 Don't I think we have to be very, very careful. Everybody has to be very, very careful. It's easy to get blasé about this, but there's a lot of snow out there.
Snow and ice. The ice is a big part, and if you come across a patch of ice, go walk into the snow beside it, because if you're on a sidewalk and you see ice ahead of you, just push over it a little bit to where the snow is. You'll get a little bit more traction that way.
Well, the other thing I've noticed is those metal manhole covers or grids that are covering things that are underneath the sidewalk. I always find those more slippery. I head to the concrete rather than the metal.
Yeah. Now, yesterday there was a guy, it was right at the hospital, and he's standing too far into the road on the road side of his truck, and he's got big reflective coats, so he's obviously a outside worker, and he's standing there looking across the street, and I had to slow right down. I'm wondering, man, that's a terrible place to just stand.
Yeah.
What are you doing? But then I noticed what he was looking at. There was an old lady across the street struggling to get through the snow on the sidewalk, and he was looking for a chance to get across there to help her out. And he was yelling to her, "Just stay where you are," kind of thing, and I'll come over.
Yeah. Well, good we've got people like that still today.
Yeah, I would have done it for $20.
Yeah, you see the difference between you and him.
Yeah. These old people, they got lots of money.
Tell your mother that.
Well, my mother generally ignores me when I start talking. Oh, there he goes.
Yeah. Okay, so all right, let's go into this. We touched on it briefly yesterday. John Major is saying U.S. isolation threatens global democracy. This came in a number of in some speeches he made. He was prime minister in UK from 1990 to 1997, so he's been around a bit. Even though the irony here is probably most people in the UK don't even remember that you say John Major, Prime Minister, they go, John who?
Yeah, I remember John Major quite well. I do. He was post Maggie Thatcher.
Post Maggie Thatcher, yeah. Yeah. And he's saying ugly nationalism is growing concurrently and making very unsettled time in the world. And he rejected Vice President Vance's criticism of Europe's record on free speech, suggesting the remarks might have been directed to authorities in Moscow or Beijing.
Well, he does. Vance had a point. There are reports from like Britain where you just have a conversation and then some cops knocking on your door. I saw videos of it. which is kind of appalling to me. Um, like they call it speech hate or something. I don't know, but it's very intrusive. So I don't like the way that's going. I don't like the way that the woke business has started to have us self-censor quite a bit. There's quite a lot of things you can't say and self-censored. The irony of it is, under the Trump administration, there are certain things you can't say. Also you have to self-censor. You can't talk about climate change, or you can't talk about the Gulf of Mexico, or you might get thrown out of
and I'm also wondering at the moment he hasn't done anything like this, but will gays be under attack, or people like other people, or Muslims?
Well, there's an article here about a fella, Mordecai Brunfman, who shot two Israelis who he thought were Palestinians.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And so all you hear now is about anti-Semitism, but what's forgotten often enough is the shootings of Palestinians by Americans, and the stabbing of a child because it was a Palestinian.
Yeah, no, exactly. That was I saw that article, and that's just kind of because they're slightly dark-skinned, we can shoot them up type thing. Oh, they must be nasty Arabs. Get over it.
Yeah, well, if you get like Ashkenazi Jews are usually fairer than Mizrahi Jews, because Mizrahi Jews either come from or Iraqi Jews, because they were more or less blended with the Arabs and the Berbers and other people of the region. But when the Ashkenazi Jews went into Europe, of course, they blended with Europeans. So, so if a guy sees and there's been a problem too. Like there's been complaints among Jews that they get mixed up with Palestinians and the other way around too.
Yeah.
So here's a guy. I don't know if he was Jewish. His name was Mordecai Blufman. It sort of sounds Jewish, but I'm not sure. He shot these two guys who thought they were Palestinians, but they're Israelis. Now, what it doesn't say there, it doesn't say they may have been Palestinian Jews, or Palestinian Israelis. That's a possibility, but it doesn't go in to say that. It probably should have said that if that was the case.
Yeah.
There are Palestinians that live within the state of Israel. So I don't know, but there is. My point here is there's been this a lot of talk of anti-Semitism, and yet the anti-Palestinian thing has gone off the page, and the and the Islamophobic thing has gone off the page. All concentrating on one thing, and unfortunately, we don't get a very good. The American press is not very good. Either is our own. You can see what happened in the Netherlands when a bunch of Israeli football fans went in there and gooned the place up, and when there was a reaction to them, everyone was called an anti-Semite, and the prime minister went crazy. Oh my goodness, we're anti-Semites again. And then when the real facts came about, she had to withdraw her comments.
Yeah,
because it was the Israeli goons basically that precipitated the whole thing, and they were just football goons. So you can't call the Israeli society anything like the football goons. It's like you can't call England, taint England because of its football goons. We were famous around the world, So
yeah, just to point this out, so. He's not just an older statesman here, John Major, right? We're talking about some comments that John Major was making, but he's actually said shortly before the Ukraine war began, he and another former Prime Minister, Gordon Brown, were among many signatories of a petition calling for Putin to face a Nuremberg-style trial for war crimes over his actions in Ukraine.
That'll never happen.
I know it will never happen, but I'm just saying that's, you know, so he's not sitting back on his laurels. He's making, you know, he's active in the public, if you know what I mean.
I wonder if he would do the same thing for George W. Bush, who bombed the crap out of Iraq, looking for weapons of mass destruction that weren't there.
Well, that's
thousands and thousands of people to die.
That's how always
prior to that, sanctions being put on Iraq, which caused also other thousands and thousands of people to die of starvation. Yeah, this is the duplicity of the West, though. You know,
that's always been my assertion that that Bush should have stood for, you know, should have been sent to the Hague for war crimes.
Well, yeah, and there was there was efforts to do that, but they couldn't do it. And you can see the resistance that comes up just because Netanyahu and Gallant, who in my mind are really, I'm so sure about Gallant as much as Netanyahu, but they are war criminals.
Yeah.
I mean, what was Gallant's first statement? He's going to cut off the water and the food and everything to the, you know, to get at Hamas, but disregarding all the other people that were there that needed water and food and medical care. And what did they do? They blasted the heck out of everything to make the place illivable. So, yeah. So we have a double standard over here. And who's going to listen to John Major when he says, "Oh yeah, well, you know, we got to go after Putin and put him in the Hague." Well, if you do that, you're going to have to go back a bit and start throwing a whole lot of people, maybe even Tony Blair.
Yeah. Yeah. The argument could be put. Yeah, absolutely. All right.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, I appreciate John Major's idea, but the big take I get out of him is American isolationism, and America, and Trump says America first, meaning we're gonna do everything for ourselves. That's it, and it doesn't matter how much it's going to hurt anyone else, because we're a priority. And he frames the whole situation as the whole world as being really mean and bad to us. So we're gonna get back at them. Canada's being mean to us. Mexico is being mean to us. Look at that USMCA agreement. How terrible is that? Oh, wait a minute. I'm the one that
He's forgotten that. He's forgotten that, you know.
Yeah. And I don't know. That whole America First thing is that kind of opposite what the U.S. has done in the previous. Is I'm going to be strong, but my strength is going to strengthen my allies, and I'm going to have hegemony for this much of the world through hard and soft power. But my allies, because they're my allies, are going to do good.
Yeah.
I'm going to help them. They're going to help me. Now it's like, I don't give a shit about you guys. I'm taking everything.
That's where the 51st state comes in play, doesn't it?
Yeah. Like, I mean, his first so-called little victory in his own orange mind was changing the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. The Gulf of Mexico had been called the Gulf of Mexico for 450 years in the English language, like long before, over 200 years before there was even a United States. And why that was important to him, it was just because he could push. He could say, "Ha, New Mexico. I mean, that's going to be next, isn't it? It's going to be New America."
Yeah. It doesn't mean, it's a thing that doesn't mean anything, because will it change? Will it, other than Google Maps, will it have changed anywhere? And hey, let's be honest, Google Maps, you know, it's not, you know, that's fluid anyway on Google Maps, you know.
Wait a minute. You know what I'm waiting for? Look, you know, if we become and maybe even before we become part of the United States, he may change the Great Lakes to Make America Great Lakes.
No, we've already turned. We have to change the names of those, to Canadian names. We have to Canadianize all the Great Lakes, including Michigan, by the way.
Well, you know what? As I suggested on a post recently, or commenting on a post, if we become part of the United States, we can ask Trump to change our name to New Florida, from Ontario to New Florida, and we'll have better weather. I just hope we don't get hurricanes.
Okay, so I just saw on Facebook this morning they're going to build a bridge from Winnipeg to Guadalajara. Across the United States, it will be Highway MC1.
Yeah, that's a good idea, actually. But I don't mention it to Ford because he might think we should have a tunnel there instead.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on. Red Roof Retreat is on the grow. They're looking to grow its home. And they've been around for 25 years, and they're now looking to grow. And they've launched a campaign to for its expanded home.
Yeah, this is a fabulous. I've been there a few times to Red Roof Retreat, and I'm telling you that it's just it's so needful. And this woman, Stephanie Bjorgen, who runs it, the woman's a saint. I honestly and not the kind of saint that the kind of just kind of religious or something like that. No, this woman is a no nonsense, kind person, but she has a mission in her mind.
Yeah.
And I think she had a child that was a special needs child, and so she put her money and her brain and everything else to use to make a place where children with special needs can go, offering a respite recreational programs for children in youth, and also a break for parents who have this. Now, what she's going to do is there's a house there that I took a little tour of. We have special needs rooms and stuff like that for kids, special beds and special equipment. It's quite complicated. It's very expensive.
They're looking at taking down the existing bungalow and replacing it with a 2-story building that's fully accessible with an elevator, single bedrooms, and significantly more space for everybody.
Yeah, it's just gonna be fabulous, basically. But I don't know what's going to happen to this place when Stephanie's just too old to do any of this. Now she gets a lot of help. Like there's a lot of local people that come and help her with the carpentry that needs done, or the this or that. So there's lots of people that she has there come to help. She makes quite a bit of money during COVID when they hit a crunch. They were happy to get money from us because it was hard for them to do any fundraising through their spaghetti dinners and stuff like that. They came to us last year and we gave them another $4,000. We have been giving them money for several years in a row now, I think, or since anyway. So, but
well, it fits in with what Kiwanis does because it's about children and youth, right?
Yeah. And similarly, we give to the Children's Center in Thorold there on Schwalm Parkway. But seriously, here's an incredible gift from Wise Guys Charity Fund of $100,000 that's going to go for this conversion, as well as Jody Finn Vermillion, whose sister Carrie Flynn is a client, donated $6,800 from the sale of more than 4,500 heart-shaped cookies leading up to Valentine's Day. I think we're going to have more and more of these. Like, I don't think they get out. I'm not even sure if they get any government money, this outfit, but in the Niagara region, there's lots of new people that have moved in, so that we're reintroducing what we do, how we do it, and where we're going to the public.
Yeah.
On February 25th, it will be unveiled detailed physical plans of the expansion during a free public skate sponsored by the Goetler Family Foundation. So there's a lot of people lining up, a lot of agencies lining up to help this. And I'm telling you, if you want to give a charitable donation to anything that is ultra worth it, give to the Red Roof Retreat. And you won't find more dedicated employees at all.
Well,
and a community that supports it.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, and on February 25th, they will be unveiling the detailed physical plans for this during a free public skate sponsored by the Gautier Family Foundation. It takes place 10:30 to 11:30 at the Meridian Credit Union Arena in Virgil. There we go.
Yep.
So February
that arena I used to play lacrosse in, so it's a hallowed place.
Okay.
They don't have my picture up there anywhere, but they should.
Damn.
So some of the best lacrosse players in North America came out of there, out of those leagues when I used to play down there, out of the higher end leagues. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Anything else to be said about that?
No more. Just that it is very worthwhile, and I'm very pleased. But when at the other side of it, I see a lot more work for Stephanie, but she seems to be inexhaustible.
Yeah, I got a couple of comments that didn't relate to that, which I'm just putting up there for a little while, and
what was that about? Sick or death? Barron's going to get sick. I don't really follow Barron Trump too much because to me, he's unimportant. He's just kind of sort of a celebrity.
I don't really follow them either. Yeah.
Well, exactly. I mean, he's hard not to notice. He's 7 feet tall, practically.
Yeah, but I know what you're saying. Yeah. All right. So, okay. So moving on. Europe's largest pension fund has sold all of its Tesla stock.
Right. I don't know. Well, they may have sold their Tesla stock because there's been a negative reaction to Tesla products. Unfortunately, Tesla still makes probably the best electric car. If not the best, it's in the top 2. So to turn your back on Tesla products because Elon Musk happens to be one of the CEOs of Tesla.
It's short-sighted, I know. Yeah.
Do remember that Elon Musk did not start Tesla.
Yes, exactly.
Elon Musk was an investor in Tesla, and he got involved in Tesla.
Elon Musk's claim to claim was PayPal.
Was PayPal, SpaceX, a number of other things that he was very good at.
He was PayPal, and then he went to Twitter, and then he went to other things.
No, he didn't go to Twitter then.
No, a long time ago, he was a minor investor in Twitter.
Oh, was he? Okay.
Yeah.
But look, he came with money. He came with money to invest. He got involved. He's very talented in aligning talent. So Tesla didn't make money for a very long time, and these guys were living on a shoestring. So Musk did a whole lot of stuff for Tesla, but don't forget when you when you turn your back on a company like Tesla
Yeah.
or Ford or anything else like that, do remember the other people that work there.
Well,
You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
You're not really. How much are you hurting every time?
Yeah.
If you're hurting Elon Musk, he ain't hurting. He's got so much money, he'll never hurt. But you
Yeah.
might hurt the guy on the assembly line.
Exactly.
And
And the other thing about this is that this is what I was saying about some of these people who are talking about buy Canadian, don't buy American. Yeah, even if you're talking about, let's say, Ford, say all Ford cars were made in America, which I know they're not. Ford has thousands, if not tens of thousands of employees in Canada that rely upon having their job with Ford. And if we stop buying Ford, we stop by, we kill off Canadian jobs.
Yeah, I've worked at the Ford plant in Oakville many times there, as a contractor going in there. So yeah, so the whole idea is be sensible. Do not boo the American anthem because you're insulting the American people. I know when you boo the American anthem, you're booing Donald Trump, right? But don't forget, there's half of the United States did not vote for Donald Trump, so you don't want to insult them. And do not, if you want to buy an electric car, and Tesla's one of your options, buy it because it's a good car. You're not going to hurt Elon Musk by not buying a Tesla. What you might do is help the guys that put it together keep a job.
Yeah.
So the ordinary person has to look at the other ordinary person out there and forget the goofiness of.
Oh yeah, that's what I say. That's why I say you've got to think twice about this Buy Canadian campaign, because whilst I generally do agree with it, it's better to buy local, better to buy Canadian. The problem here is that if you're buying from a company that employs tens of thousands of people in Canada, that can hurt Canadian jobs big time.
Yeah. So really that's a. So use your mind here. I know that the emotional reaction is I ain't gonna buy no more Teslas. Well, in our particular case, because Teslas aren't built in Canada, maybe that's a good idea. But all in all, you don't want to say I don't want to buy that kind of car. You have to remember the people who are building the car, not the imbeciles that might be running a car, that kind of thing. So, like Henry Ford was at the froth of the mouth anti-Semite, but he happened to be a fantastic industrialist and changed the world because of the way he manufactured cars and so on.
Yeah.
So are you going to not buy a Ford because Henry Ford was an anti-Semite? No, you're going to buy a Ford because that Ford company employs a lot of people just like you.
Yeah, and it's interesting that actually one person who did note that Ford was an anti-Semite was, of course, Adolf Hitler when he built the Volkswagen. It was one of the reasons why he admired Ford so much.
Yeah, he used to have a picture of Henry Ford on his wall.
Yeah. Okay, so Chris Simone makes a very important point. Rarely do common men meet. They're too busy minding their own business, doing their own work, usually grafting for a living, and just to pay the rent, just to pay, make ends meet.
Yes. So right now, I think though, like that's true. That's true. And because we're not as well informed as we should be, we don't think that's important as much as we should. That we should inform ourselves and about as much unbiased news as we can throughout the day. I'm not talking about making a study of it, but to keep an open mind about news sources. If you're looking at the CBC or Fox or even PBS, all seem to have a bit of an agenda, and Fox has a huge agenda. But so you gather around news sources and try to inform yourself of the world a little bit. That way, it will stop you from having an immediate emotional reaction, like doing the American anthem.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Well, I get why people did.
People, you know what I mean? And go ahead.
I get why people do it, but it's wrong.
Yeah, definitely. Because remember who you're insulting. You're insulting the American people, half of which did not vote for Trump.
Yes, exactly. All right. Another one relating to this. I put this one on here because I thought we had to cover it. Very large faucet in Canada, part of a looming US water crisis. This very large faucet thing, we know it doesn't exist. It's an utter bunk. But if Trump really thinks he can get his water from Canada, he's got another thing coming.
But finally, we're understanding what Trump means. He talked about this giant faucet and water coming from Canada and all this. What he's talking about is the water treaties that we have had with the United States over the years.
Yeah.
What he doesn't really realize, I don't think Trump is, that they had an enormous planned diversion of Alaskan water into the United States. They came through Canada and would go into the United States to supply the water needs of the United States. Now, this never really happened, but what did happen was water diversions from, of all places, from Montana to Alberta, the other way around, the way you wouldn't expect it.
Yeah.
Other diversions happened
actually
from Manitoba through Montana and then into Alberta. So these things have been going on for some time.
There was
over 100 years.
Yeah.
And what the mega project that Trump didn't talk about was this huge water diversion that they had planned but didn't continue with, to divert Alaskan water through BC and into the United States. Also, that which was on
the other one, of course, is along the Fraser River. You know, where the area that got flooded a couple of years ago. The actual water, a lot of the water that goes through that Fraser Valley comes from Washington State, because they've diverted it northbound to get it to the Fraser River. But at the same time, they were, they're basically utilizing those flood basins for homes.
Yeah, it's a pretty complicated thing, and we have these treaties, and part of the treaties along the Fraser River there, they've dammed things up. They've made reservoirs of stuff so they control the water flow and store it for other times, and then that in conjunction with the United States, we're able to control water and water resources that way.
Yeah.
But the idea of the water coming from Canada off a really big faucet, a little bit odd, but I understand what he's thinking now. Now this mega project of the water coming from Alaska through BC, that'll never happen because it'll take.
I've got the answer for Trump, right? We just need to.
He's listening. He's listening. Wait, we have Trump. Are you listening? We'll give him a minute to listen. Okay, go ahead, Peter.
Right. We've got so much snow around here. We just load it all into trucks and send them south.
As long as he pays for the trucking.
He can pay for the trucking. We can put all the snow on the White House lawn. It gets rid of the snow. It gets rid of our snow problem, right?
I'm making snow great again.
I'm making snow great again. Yeah, I'm good at that. I'm making snow great again. I'm going to take that one away. Thank you, Dave. I'll have that. I'll have that one for my own use. But
you're welcome. You're very welcome.
Yeah. So moving on, scientists at U.S. Weather Forecasting Agency are ordered to get clearance before talking to their Canadian counterparts. Do you think this will happen?
I'm afraid it's going to take a little while for things to settle down because they're trying to rapidly rein in all kinds of U.S. tax money expenditures. And up until now, the scientists from the U.S. and Canada, from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, which is a world, and I'll just read this off. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration is a world-renowned scientific agency providing research funding and weather monitoring, like this 2024 satellite image. It shows you one there. And I'm not so sure they know that the Gulf's name has changed because it says here it captured
Gulf of Mexico.
It captured Hurricane Helen in the Gulf of Mexico. Yeah, but he hadn't changed the name yet, so I guess that's okay. But basically, we have this.
This is CBC, so this is a Canadian, Canadian page.
Yeah, it'll depend on who wrote the article too, whether there's any kind of agenda to it or slant. But basically, what it's saying here, for the meantime, these scientists are not allowed to talk together. They have to get approval to do that. Whereas before, the scientists on both sides of the river trading data, having meetings and that kind of thing, can't do that anymore. They're going to have the green light from somewhere else. So basically what they're doing is they're monitoring everything. And actually on the Canadian side of the border, we get some U.S. money for our research because it helps them do their research.
Yeah. But so you know what this will do, though? It'll drive it all under the table.
It's not that so much. You need that funding to keep these things going. These agencies were looking at fish migratory systems, how climate change is adjusting the Great Lakes, what to expect, all manner of things that are very important, but it takes time and it takes research money and it takes cooperation across the border. What the American administration has done right now is put a muzzle on its scientists and says you can't do anything until we see it and we know what it's all about. Now, the whole idea of Trump trying to sort of clean up the swamp, basically, and his attempt to enact Project 2025, basically, is to clean out the government and put nothing but loyalists in. That's a bad thing. You have to have people who can think for themselves. You have to have people that can disagree and come to consensuses. But he doesn't want that. He just wants to say, oh, what I say is true and you better believe it. And that's all there is to it. If there is if I suddenly go into the temple of Baal, everybody else better believe that there is a Baal.
Yeah. And but as I say, I think draconian measures like this are, bad. They don't help anybody. I think what you'll end up doing is, money aside, and I do accept that there are many issues there. That there's money flows across for that scientific research, but money aside, that data will move.
Now we have to think in these terms. Is this a temporary thing until the government can reassess, the U.S. government can reassess where it's spending money and is it getting value for dollar?
Yeah.
Now, one of the things it did with the USAID for a very long period of time, right back to Eisenhower's days, because the U.S. was able to produce a lot more grain than it needed, the U.S. government, in part of its soft power ability to make friends around the world, would buy that extra grain. It encouraged the farmers to grow that extra grain, it would buy it for USAID and then sow goodwill by taking it to other parts of the country. Now we have Chris Simone listening on us, and where he went, they didn't like the USAID people at all for some reason. Maybe the USAID in that particular part of the world wasn't run well, but anyway, that's the whole idea of it. And if the American government stops buying that grain, those farmers are going to go out of, a lot of them are going to go out of work, because that's what they've grown grain for, because of the expectation that USAID would buy that grain, distribute it to starving people around the world. So, or people in need. So when the government says, okay, stop everything, because now we're going to look at everything, are they going to really look at it and see if they're getting value for money? Of course, in a government, any government, there's going to be corruption and waste, and a lot of people getting a salary that really don't need it. There'll be duplication of services and everything like that. So, and the United States has to drop its bill, because it cannot rein in its borrowing. It cannot live on the money that it makes.
Yeah.
For every dollar it spends, it has to borrow another 50 cents or something. You know what I mean? So,
yeah.
So it is of some kind of urgency that they reduce their debt, because it's getting out of hand. And it's at every great nation, the Portuguese, the Dutch, the Spanish, the British Empire, all fell because they incurred enormous debts.
Yeah.
And,
oh yeah.
You know, and let's make it clear too. The U.S. Monetary policies caused the great crash of 2008, which caused the United States to borrow an enormous amount of money from China.
Yeah.
So the real irony here is that the mighty U.S. and how they've done everything well, and they're the great economic power of the world, needed China to give them money when they couldn't handle their own affairs. So it's a very, very complicated system out there.
Yeah.
Question mark. Who has? What was that one from Betty?
Okay. Question: who has the right to sell water and energy? Who owns it? Well, Canada as a nation, I'm guessing, but
well, we have treaty obligations, and as I said before, that we have water treaty obligations with the United States going back over 100 years. 1909, I think, was when it first come, and most of us think, okay, they want our water, so we got to be careful. But as I said in the article there, the Mary River, actually in Montana, the water comes from Montana into Alberta. Yeah. So the water goes both ways. Now, we all obviously know we have a whole lot more water than most countries in the world. I think we have the 20% of the world's supply of fresh water or something here in Canada. So obviously they're going to want some of that water, and maybe we can trade it for something, but we'd have to do that very, very carefully, because it's environmentally sensitive. And that particular big water diversion of Alaska fresh water down into the United States, that big, huge mega project was put on hold, probably because of the enormous expense.
Yeah.
But
okay. So Randy's saying, when the government says stop everything, Trump hasn't concerned himself with all the progress activity, and costs will come crashing and onto his responsible shoulders.
Yeah. Now, let's say just for a moment that Trump is not as much of a trollster as he appears to be. I can't say that for sure. Let's say he's put a lot of this into responsible hands somewhere along the line, so he can keep trolling. But a real good administrator would say, okay, let's take that Rolodex of all the different government agencies and go through it and inspect it to see each different agency, where the waste is, how we could trim it down, do we even really need this agency? Like, for instance, he wants to get rid of the education office, the U.S. Education Department. So every different department, yeah. But what he's done instead is he's got everything to freeze right up, and he's getting rid of people. 77,000 employees so far. They have earmarked up to 2 million. That's going to have a backlash because at least half of them have been Trump supporters.
Yeah.
Because they are typically unbiased politically.
Well, I've seen a report, and I haven't yet seen any confirmation, that he may well be seen as the worst president, the most unpopular. Didn't say worst was the wrong statement. Most unpopular president in history. Second most unpopular.
Who went? When his last term?
Trump right now. Right now.
Right now?
Right now.
Well, he got popular when he started throwing people out of the country. That kind of thing made him popular. But right now, what he's doing, he's scaring people. Like he's throwing a lot of people out of government. Like I said, if the U.S. debt is so incredible that something has to be done, but this has to be done rather quickly. But the surgical knife that cuts out the waste can't cut out the good.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And exactly. Of course, there's going to be, and then they get big headlines for, a million condoms going to Gaza, but it turns out it was Gaza, Mozambique, the province of Gaza, the territory named Gaza in Mozambique. So everybody freaked out. Oh, you're sending condoms to Hamas, and they're making bombs out of them. Seriously, nobody. Not even Musk. He had to admit that he messed up on that one. And he says, well, yeah, I invite the criticism. But why is it the whole press and everybody jumped on that without checking? It took a foreign journalist to check. Hey, wait a minute. I don't like, and Hamas is saying, what do you mean talking about condoms? We don't get any condoms. And then they'd have a second look that it was the Gaza territory of Mozambique.
Too many kids in the Gaza territory of Mozambique, eh?
It was either Mozambique or Madagascar. But anyway, it wasn't anywhere near Gaza. And Hamas didn't get any of those condoms.
Right. Randy in Chippewa says it's unlikely as it would appear Canada can use some of the same relative concerns. Canada has a couple of 100 years collection problems on top of problems, and a clearing of old baggage isn't a bad idea.
That's a good idea.
True.
That's a good idea as long as you don't cut the good with the bad. And let's face it, Canada's in the same problem. Like Canada had no mind of its own. Canada saw all these other countries boring out of their ears, so Canada did the same thing. Yeah. 2015, Trudeau started boring like crazy, said that the taxes would pay for themselves. And then suddenly changed his mind and says, "Oh, we don't have a problem at all because our GDP to ratio to income is not as bad as other Europeans." But he didn't add in the provinces, so it made it look good. And the GDP per person is down, which per capita, pardon me, is down, which he didn't point out as well. So very much. Saying, "Oh, okay, it's still okay for us to borrow lots of money." Yeah, we have a similar problem. We have a lot of waste in our country as well. Whether we need a Doge to go in there and cut rapidly, get rid of a lot of programs, I think it's a lot better if you have a bipartisan or tripartisan committee to go in and say, "Look, we can't have this debt anymore. It's killing us. Let's start cutting things we don't need." And saving some taxes and wait till our country is more prosperous again, where we can begin to spend the money we are now. It's no good. Canada spends more money than the whole HST part of the GST. The whole HST is used to pay off just the interest on our debt.
Yeah.
So every time you go to the store and you see the tax bill you're getting every time you buy something, and you take that HST part of that, and you think, well, there it goes just to pay for the debt of my country.
Yeah.
So I have to pay it. So I have to pay the debt that my country irresponsibly accumulated.
And the interesting thing is, I think typically when you go to Department of Government efficiency, and you're expecting greater efficiency, it always occurs to me there was one thing. Margaret Thatcher, for example, in all her wisdom, I remember her one time saying, "Oh, we've got too many benefit wasters here, people who are collecting benefits that don't deserve them." So she spent a lot of money, and I don't precisely know how, don't remember how much, but it was like she spent £10 billion chasing benefit fraud people, and yet she only recovered like £5 billion from them.
Oh, it's like when we investigated the Senate. There was a matter of maybe $100,000 that they were worried about from senators' travels and their expenses. So they spent $1 million investigating it, and all they could do was come up with the conclusion that we can't do anything because the wording of the senators' expenses and things are so vague that we can't. There's no real clear definition here, so they could practically do whatever they want. Now, the one thing they may have done is tighten up those rules and made them a little more clear. But the Senate, in its infinite wisdom to benefit itself, created wording in agreements that made it impossible for them to be liable for the expenses they were doing. So when the senators say, "Yeah, I went on holidays on my airplane. Yeah, I spent big money in big hotels, but I'm not doing anything against the law. Here it is."
Yeah. And he may have spent $100,000 that he wasn't entitled to, but the rules allowed him to spend $100,000.
Yeah.
And that's the irony of it. If you allow something to happen, no matter how bad that actually seems, and how critical, how we as the people might criticize it, it's not illegal if it's not, if it's not been written into law.
Yeah. So anyway, I don't know.
The idea that we can't seem to have a law that allows us to change problems and expenses such as the Senate. Yeah, very good question. It's about actually the law that set that up in the first place, Randy.
Yeah, and I don't know. They make these things. The politicians protect them. Well, especially a fluff organization like the Senate.
Yeah. All right. So coming back local for the last thing, by the way, Pathstone workers are actually bracing for a potential lockout there. What's going on with this, Dave?
I was very surprised by this. I didn't even expect anything of that kind ever. But Pathstones, which is the mental health facilities here, have employees, and employees say they are not paid well enough, and so they're making demands. But they didn't go on strike, really. It's the Pathstones shut them out.
Yeah.
Put a lockout on them. So basically speaking, we're just talking about government expenditures and stuff like that. Well, here's a situation where the government says it doesn't have enough money to pay them, or through Pathstones. Basically, Pathstones gets a lot of money from the government, and from people who donate. But they have employees, and employees don't like where the contract negotiations are going. And unfortunately, I just lost the article.
Okay. Yeah, and it always bothers me when I see words like lockout, especially, and also then the other thing is, there's an article. Actually, this is OPSEU. Dozens picket Pathstone mental health in the Niagara region. This was 5 days ago.
Oh. Shoot, I can't get the damned article. For some reason,
It's just
I
not
got it
there.
off the Niagara Review site, but it's telling me that the St. Catharines Standard is saying, "Oh, thanks for the visit," but no, I got it from the Niagara Falls Review. So
Okay. Yeah, so I don't have much on. I
yeah,
can't
here
get
it
in.
is. Here.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, it's doing the same thing to me. Oh, I get it. My
You're,
subscription keeps timing out or something. Anyway, so
you got to pay your money, Dave. You got to pay your money to get your subscription.
I did, but my subscription was timing out for
Yeah.
some reason. Anyway, it's back on now. So in a statement published, the union said the lockout could begin as soon as Saturday, disrupting crisis mental care provided for use at walk-in clinics and through a crisis support line, treatment and care of use in a live-in treatment home would be impacted along with individual and group therapy programs, family support services, and behavioral supports for primary and secondary academic programs. The proposed lockout threatens to disrupt these vital services, putting the well-being of the countless children and families at risk, the union said.
Yeah.
Well, the union said the contract negotiations hit an impasse in December when workers voted 95% to reject a final offer from management that included benefit cuts, reductions in sick leave, and wage increases that fell below the rate of inflation. Well, I don't think this is the consequence of governments getting themselves into debt, big time debt. Now, if the governments hadn't got themselves in debt, these people would still have a job, and their wages and everything will be incremental along the way. But the government has enormous debts, and it cannot support these programs as good as they are. That's what I see in this. That's but the real thorn in all this is that's after Pathstone Chief Executive Officer Sean Bayless received a 15% wage increase in 2023
That
with
does not.
$28,000.
Yeah, that does not bode well for any organization. If you can't pay, if you go and pay a chief executive or a senior executive a lot of money on a pay rise, it doesn't bode well for the organization at all, ever. Especially an organization which is a non-government agency like this that's doing work in the area, and all of the workers in that organization do good work.
Yeah. Yeah. So the what they do is not the issue. Is Can you afford it? And unfortunately, we all say, "What are you doing? You got to keep that place open. You got to do what you can." But the government comes along and says, "Well, how much money do you think we have?" And the people who watch the uh, taxpayer look out for the taxpayer say, "Well, you know what? We can't afford that."
Yeah.
So what I see coming, if they can't resolve this, is people are going to go back and they're going to get not what they want, but they're going to get something, and they're going to be layoffs and service cuts.
Yeah.
And everybody says, "Well, why do you like?" And this is what is warned by the NDP and the Liberals: if you get the Conservatives into government, you're going to get service cuts and stuff like that. But on the other hand, the Conservatives will say, if we don't come in, we're going to get more and more in debt where we can't afford the services, and we'll have to shut them down anyway. So that like it's six of one, half dozen the other. If you get the Liberals and NDP are loath to shut down and reduce services, as we all are. We don't want those shut down services, but they have to keep borrowing to keep them going. And then there comes a point where the bank's not going to give you any money.
Yeah.
The taxes have to go way up to pay for the debt. Then you're going to have to cut the services no matter what, if you're NDP or a Liberal. Look what happened to the NDP government under Bob Rae. They had to try to cut services and everything during the time, try to get the Rae days and anything, get the debt down, because we lost our credit rating. We went to a AA rather than AAA or something like that.
Yeah.
And we had to pay even more interest rates because our government management was so poor. So when they tried to rein that in, you got massive resistance from everyone.
Yeah.
That's because once you cannot take candy from a baby, basically. Once you've given somebody something and then say, oh, now we can't have it anymore. That's because we can't afford it anymore. So it's better to be physically responsible and pay for the things you can afford. And unfortunately, as good a place as Pastones is, the only thing I can see resolving here is they're going to have to cut staff if they want the other ones paid well.
Yeah. All right. I think we can leave it at that. Oh, we've got one more comment. Have a great hump day, gentlemen. End of another week is almost here. Yeah. Okay.
Well, I think it's more than just a hump day. It's been a hump month. I think Trump's been we've had the Trump hump for a month, for weeks now. Trump's been humping us.
Yeah. Okay. And I think with that, we can kind of leave it.
Without further ado, I bid you do pray for peace.